Welcome back to the Healthy Business Podcast. This is a very special episode. I'm Ty King with American Business Engine. With me, as always, is
Jessica Cam Collaborative.
Jessica. And also, we're joined by a third party and a very important party of this time of year, right? So, you're very integral to the spooky
The most
season.
important.
That's right. That's right. Can't have
Thank you.
backgrounds like you have without guys like you, right? So, um,
Thank you.
Carlos, please introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. I'm the art director for Spirit Halloween. I've been here for actually New Jersey for about 3 years now, going in February. I came from LA. That's kind of where my home is. And yeah, just been designing toys and product development for about 18 years. Moved over to New Jersey. Now I'm here heading up the animatronics team in here in New Jersey at Spirit. So it's been really fun.
Very cool. Very
So
cool.
yeah, yeah,
And like we were talking before we started recording about how this is kind of a crazy time of the year for you because you're leading up 3 months into before Halloween, even you're trying to get all the new products together and
yeah,
placed and getting, I guess, I don't know, there's a lot involved in there, I'm sure. So my
yeah.
experience with your animatronics is walking into a Spirit Halloween and getting scared because I walked past the wrong one that moved. You know what I mean? It was waiting for me to stand there. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I was like,
Happens.
yeah. So I found you on LinkedIn and started following you over a year ago and been following
Oh,
your posts and your development of like I'm just the figures and everything that you're doing there, animatronics, even like the Killer Clowns line you're doing now.
yeah.
So yeah, just wanted to give you an opportunity to come in and sort of talk about what you're doing. And Jessica has plenty of questions, I'm sure. She designates
Cool.
herself the Queen of Halloween. So
Awesome. That was nice to
I'm
meet
not
you.
sure that's exactly accurate, but I do
what she
love
said.
Halloween.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's quoted.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy road, especially during this time of year. We're really starting to wrap up for the following year and getting a lot of stuff done. And like I was telling you, Ty, it's like, this is the season where we kind of like fine tune everything for next year. And um, so it is all hands on deck. Everybody's kind of on high alert, trying to get things ready to go. And so it's a very crucial time for us, especially for Halloween around the corner. A lot of us volunteer at the stores, during the season. So
Hmm.
we are immersed not only in design but also with the customers, consumers and stuff like that. So we are a big part of the ecosystem of Spirit. You know what I mean? So we're kind of tied into a lot of different things, and so it's amazing that we get to participate not just in the development aspect of it, but also the consumers as well, interactions, events, and things like that. So it's really really
Yeah.
cool.
So what's it like in your creative process, right? So whenever you're creating something, normally when, we talk about this a lot on our podcast about like when you're creating a product, you have somebody in mind for this, and so you try to cater it to that customer, right? You being, this is a major store that comes across, seasonally, across Halloween. And you're is there a process of you coming up with a design and then showing maybe a board that approves or wants improvements on that before it becomes an actual product? Like what's that series like?
Well, it is a kind of a standard development process that goes across like any hard lines team that does like hard like decor. When I say hard lines, I mean anything that's not soft stuff like costumes and plushes and things like that. So when I say hard lines, I think about everything that's behind me right now is pretty much all hard lines development, which is hard
Hmm.
goods.
Sure.
Um, so basically, when I come up with an idea or my team comes up with an idea or we're inspired by something, we typically have our standard development process. I mean, between the beginning of the year and then we go into obviously concepting. We put our presentations together, that sort of thing. So again, it's standard across every studio that I've ever been a part of. It's like it's kind of followed suit across the board. So you got
Hmm.
your development part of the process, and then you go into presentation season. So a lot of our stuff is pretty much internal. So all our buyers are pretty much in house. So there's no one that we have to cater to outside of us. You know what I mean? So when I
Right.
present, I don't have to present in hopes that Walmart will pick me up or that Target will pick me up, which is something that happens with the toy industry. You have a lot of people that are fighting for space In this case, we fight for space, but in our own space. So it's like we're trying to figure out like what makes sense for our store, for our consumers, that sort of thing. So for me, it is interesting to go down this, because I've never pretty much have gone just directly to a buyer and be like, hey, this is a cool idea I have, or they come to me and say, hey, we thought about this, or we saw something. So it's very collaborative in our development with them. And so you don't get that very much with other companies. You know what I mean? You don't get to have that back and forth and have a full team, not just the creatives, but also our buyers, our project managers. They all kind of collectively work together to assemble such a great presentation to the consumer. So it is a pretty much a village to kind of make this happen. So for me personally, like I said, it's like, as a DR director, I kind of oversee my team, and when they come up with ideas, or we have different segments in our development schedule, which is our animatronics. Then we got our licensing decor, our non-licensing decor stuff. So our weapons, our masks. So there's different categories that each of my team kind of hones in. You know what I mean? So again, I have different chefs for different, for different types of foods. If you want to call it that. Like everybody has their own flavor of different styles and things. So there's some of my guys are very good at weapons and masks and so on, but pretty much everybody collectively hold on a second. Sorry. My dog's there. So at the end of the day, it's like they follow the same process I do. So at the end of the day, we have like again, we show our concepts to our buyers, and then they pretty much just select what they want to get, and then we go in and we tighten it up, send it to our China team, and then we start kind of going into that process. So it's really cool. I really think it's a fun process, and again, it's something that I followed throughout my years. So it's not anything new. It's just it just has to be, kind of all gathered in one line so that we all don't kind of scatter everywhere, because everybody has so many crazy ideas. Um, and so we have to kind of wrangle them in and make sure that we follow suit with the rest of the group so that we can kind of stay steady on the course, for final development. So it's cool. I hope I answered your question. I know I went around the whole thing like
You did. You answered all the
but yeah,
questions
it's
I
kind of
did.
it's a very kind of bizarre way, but it is like I said, it's like every other studio has been like, really really cool, steady flow.
Sure.
So what kind of lead time do you have on an idea?
It depends on the category, right? So I mean, if there's so like for us, it takes longer to produce an animatronic versus something like a sticker or a mug or something like that, right? Because animatronics, you have to develop stuff from the looks of it, the paints, the mechanism. There's a lot to those things, and so that takes a little bit longer than anything else. And also there's electronical things that we work on, and electronic stuff that takes a longer lead time. So we do kind of tackle those things first and foremost in our schedule, so that we don't have to rush anything at the end, especially when there is so much to do. Sometimes when we do animatronic stuff, it's like you have some paint jobs that the China factory can't produce, because on our side we want them to look like movie quality, right? So we paint them up
Mhm.
and doll them up like really really cool. Well, in China they don't have artistic they don't have the
Yeah.
artistic eye. Like they're literally on the line, just literally painting as in shifting, painting, shifting, painting, shifting. So
Yeah.
for us, it's very difficult to get quite the look we're looking for. So we do have to allow ourselves a little bit of lead time for those type of things. So yeah, so each one, depending on the category, we do have to be careful on our schedule with that stuff. But animatronics will be like our one of our main ones that we give a lot of lead time for. So
Mhm. So we send a
math,
concept out, and you get sort of get sent to this assembly line. Basically, that's what that is. And they're painting it, but not exactly the way that you had originally imagined. Do you take that again and be like, you try to readjust so that it's easier for people that are on that assembly line to go ahead and paint?
I mean, we try to, because again, it just
Yeah,
depends on who's on the other line. You know, what I mean? If
sure.
somebody, if they're switching shifts, and then
Oh,
one
that's
one
true.
shift is doing a really good job and they're steadily moving and moving and moving, they got the rhythm, and then you shift the crew, and then now they're like, now the rhythm's off, and so that's something you can't control. You know what I mean? That's something you have to kind of go along with. So that's why we have our, our team on that side that does like the inspections, and we get our buyers and them get like first samples, or they get certain things that kind of like help us to understand whether or not the line is moving as we want it to. We see like defects and stuff, we address them right away. So there's a system that we have that is in place to kind of avoid that sort of stuff. But again, once it hits the store, and like just recently, yesterday, in fact, I went to the store and I saw a Pennywise sidesteppers, those guys that dance like those dancing
Yeah.
Santas, right? And I went in and I took pictures of it, and I actually meant to show it to my team this week for our meeting, but it really was a really sloppy job, like the way his paint was oversprayed and everything. But again, that's something that is, you can't catch that because it's already like we've approved the first ones, everything's good. But again, when you shift the crew, now you got people that are just jamming to get it done. And now the first crew did it a really fantastic job that we approved. Now we have to go back and be like, okay, we have to look back and say, listen, guys, you guys gotta get it together because you guys are getting a little sloppy here. Some stuff's getting out of, overspray on paints. And Pennywise is very particular because he has these very fine lines that are red all over
Mm-hmm.
his. But when you have him oversprayed, it looks like he just ate like red cake and he just had it all over, and
Yeah.
it doesn't look good. So
Yeah.
it does affect things. You know what I mean, especially in the assembly line. I mean, quality control is something we kind of
Sure.
try our best to um, to manage as best we can. But again, when you have a
Mm-hmm.
crew overseas versus our team, we don't always have that control all the time. So we try to do our best, but again, not everything gets 100% reviewed. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's with any place. It's like it's hard to control every single one that comes off the line. So you have to let some
So,
things go.
so when you're dealing with an overseas company to try and manufacture your product, what advice would you give another company who's going to be first going into that? Do they need someone who translates in-house, or I mean, what kind of things would you suggest to a small business who's looking to outsource to China, for example?
Yeah, having somebody on your team that can speak the language is super important, like very, very important. Somebody who understands manufacturing is also important because sometimes, like again, the China side, they're in it for the business. They're not there to cater about anything else but their business. I mean, their business is what they got to take care of. Ultimately, that's the end goal for them. But for us, we have other goals. We have our personal, profits and all that stuff that we have to manage on our side. But for somebody who's just starting out, I would definitely make sure you have a really strong um, engineer team, or somebody who engineers really well, that understands what you're trying to get into. There's a lot of engineers there that understand a lot of different things, and so having a team it's a tight knit team. And I've worked with teams that are very, very tight knit, and by that I mean you have a strong project manager that understands um, like your material costs, all the stuff that goes along with development for product. And so there's a you got to have a good team for that. You know what I mean? Like engineering team, design team too. Somebody who understands the quality that you're trying to go for. You know what I mean? And so also don't just nail down with the first factory that you go to because it might not be the right fit for you. So I mean, always make sure that you see their portfolio, or what they would say like their showrooms, to see if they can actually manufacture something that the quality that you're looking for. Because again, there's hundreds of factories in China, and I think everybody will fight for your business, but not everybody can give you the quality that you're looking for, right? So it's important that you take your time to really establish a relationship with somebody that you feel will be the best results for your product. You know what I mean? And that's important, especially when you kind of, it's almost like going to like a buffet, right? Or some place where you go eat and then you're just tasting a little bit of each one and seeing what's the right, like when you go to the mall, right? And you go to the food court and you're like testing samples. It's kind of like, to me, it's like that. I don't know how everybody else feels, but to me, it's like that because I really like to see like samples or images of stuff that they've created. If they work with licenses, do they have, I look at a lot of different things, a lot of factors for factories. And so, I mean, especially when they're certified for Disney, or they're certified for, to be able to support, your licensing, if you're going through licensing, or if you're doing non-license, can they produce, the materials that you're trying to go for? Do they do fabrics? Can they do, so you got to look at the variety, and or do they have the capability or resources for them to go outside of their own factory to, bring you in an additional factory to assist in the final development. There's factories that can do the whole spectrum. Some factories do it in parts. They'll do like some things, but they'll outsource some other stuff. And so if they have that network around there that can get you to your final result, that's always important to notice. You know what I mean? So always make sure that don't just go to the first factory. Always make sure that you ask the right questions, especially that you got to look at your interest, not just theirs and the relationship, but also it's your interest is the most important part, because they'll tell you they can, you know what I mean? They want your business for sure. But at the same time, it's like, you got to make sure that it's right for you cost wise, whether they have good, shipping, all that stuff that goes into the whole process of domestic, oh, I mean, sorry, international shipping and all that stuff. So it's important to ask the right questions for that sort of stuff. So that's what I would do. I mean, if I was to get into it.
We know that you design a lot of different, like you said, what do you call them? Hard figures?
Yeah, hard line stuff. Yeah,
Hard lines, yes. Yeah, those
yeah.
hard lines and animatronics. And so when you're doing animatronics, it's more than just design, right? So do you have to have some sort of understanding of robotics in order to design the animatronic so that it works functionally?
Um, it helps. I don't think it's necessary. I just, as long as you understand
Hmm.
your limitations. Obviously you're not designing with hydraulics. We don't design with hydraulics, so there is limitations on our side as far as mechanisms we can use. So just having an understanding of motion, understanding of how motors work and what can be used. Like for example, if you can use one motor to do two motions, that sort of stuff is important to know. You know what I mean? So it's like we're building rockets. I mean, we're not going to the moon. It's just really just simple mechanisms, planetary gears and things that are very simple, and or open market stuff that is kind of used all over. So if you open up any animatronic from like pretty much everywhere, anywhere you go, whether it's Lowe's or Home Depot, Spirit, anywhere you go, they all pretty much come from the same place. And so a lot of them share kind of the same mechanism. So everybody kind of knows the style of mechanisms that they are. So if you were to go to the store and just lift the top up or their costume up, and you see the underneath guts, you kind of see that it's so simplistic, and it's just a simple motor just moving it back and forth. So it's like a simple toy. It's like a toy but bigger. So, for coming from the toy world, I mean, we've had to work with cars, like vehicle cars, RCs, which are more involved. There's a lot more to it. But if you really break it down, it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same mechanism, because you have an IR sensor, and that triggers emotion, or triggers a sound, or so same thing with animatronics. You wave your hand in the IR sensor, and it'll trigger his audio, and it'll start his movement. And again, when you play with RC cars, you have an IR. You know what I mean? And so it's kind of the same exact thing. So it's not like you're if you play with toys enough, I think you you have a pretty good understanding of how these things function. But I mean, like I said, we're not playing with anything really high tech. I mean, it's really kind of old technology, and it's been around for a very long time. So it's not. I wouldn't say you have to know robotics, but I think it helps to understand mechanics. Like if this motor moved this shifted this way, and then you have a camshaft and it moved this, like you have all these different
Mhm.
things, and it does, and it just rotates. Or if you have a almost like a, how can I explain to you, um like a rotating motor, and it's almost like a train, like a train wheel, and just going like
Yeah.
this, and it's creating motion for two things to move, pull back and
Mhm.
forth like this. So understanding certain things, how they function, is important, but I don't think you really need to know robotics to kind of get in it. I didn't know robotics. I came in here, but I did have an understanding of mechanisms and electronics because of my background. I've done RCs. I worked on a lot of animatron. I mean, with SpongeBob, I got to work with a lot of
Yeah.
light and sound stuff, a lot of stuff with batteries and plug-in adapter stuff. So there's really, I mean, it kind of came with a package. I've been doing it for 18 years, so I kind of understood it. But anybody who's just starting out, it's um it's definitely a plus if you know robotics or understand it in an engineering mindset. I guess like having an engineering style of thinking is important. but I don't think it's important that you build an animatronic, based off of robotic knowledge. I don't think that that's how it works, especially because factories are the ones kind of building it at the end. We rarely touch the actual mechanics. We just kind of guide them as to what we want the mechanics to do. You know what I mean? And so there's
Okay.
a little bit of both. So you got to kind of, have a little bit of understanding so you can communicate that clearly to allow function and design to work together. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, the so you mentioned SpongeBob in there. Like obviously you've worked with several different licensed products. And so what's the difference between having, just complete open freedom to create a new, maybe become an IP, you never know. But you're creating a completely new creation and versus working with a licensed product.
Well, I mean, two things. So for licensing, if the licensor allows you to be creative, like they did when they gave me the ability to redesign the killer clowns, that's phenomenal because as a designer, you want to give it your flavor. You want to be able to bring life to them in a way that you would do your own product. It's almost like you take it personal. Like for me, I took the killer clowns a little personal. They became a little bit more stylistic to my taste, which actually panned out to work out really well. We got awarded for the killer clown stuff that my team worked on, from animatronics to from the decor stuff and licensing, all the licensing mugs and cups and fleeces and everything we got to work on with my team. It got awarded because again, it was something that we were given freedom to do what we wanted to do. So I think when you let creatives do their thing, it's awesome. When you work on a license that doesn't allow you to do that, it gets a little bit harder to have fun with it. But the challenge for any designer should be to make it fun and make it creative and have a good time and learn from it. Even if it's something you don't enjoy doing, you just have to learn from it and grow from it. And um, so from an IP perspective, I feel like if I was given the opportunity to do an IP versus license, I would obviously love to do an IP because that's where all the creative stuff comes. I mean, that's where it's at. You get to start from scratch. You get to work on the process from start to finish. You know what I mean? And that's the beauty of it because I worked on a lot of IP stuff, and it's always been my favorite because it just evolves as you get more into the product. You're like, oh, what if we added this guy to it and we added this, and then it becomes this gigantic branding thing, and it just becomes this cool world that you're establishing with your team. And I think that's what I think everybody strives for, is to do a cool IP. Because then it becomes like, hey, a licensing opportunity. I mean, look what happened with Paw Patrol. I mean, that's something that you develop an IP, and then it became like $1 billion like franchise thing or branding or whatever. So I think for me, it's like I have fun with both of them. So with licensing, for me, if it's a fun license, like SpongeBob, for example, I can honestly say that SpongeBob legit, like I never thought it was going to be that, but I think SpongeBob changed my outlook on a lot of things. And working with the Nickelodeon team, and kudos to those guys because those guys are amazing. And working with them, and letting them trust me with the brand, I got to work on a lot of fun things that my marketing team, was able to come up with this cool idea to make it more aged appropriate, more aged up, and then they said, okay, Carlos is gonna design. So I'm like, okay, cool. So then they let me run with it, and then I took all those ideas and I just put them all in this style and this creative way to present it, and it got to a point where again it was an amazing thing. And being nominated in 2019 for the Toy Designer of the Year was a big thing for me because I was given creative freedom with SpongeBob, and I never thought I was able to do that. And I got to work with a great team and at Nickelodeon, and that was again, it changed my whole. You can say it changed at that point. It was a turning point. It really changed my life, for sure, because I got to go to London and I got to go do all these different things and travel in China and develop stuff with engineers. And it was really involved because I was pretty much the only designer working on it in house, and so it really allowed me to learn you know um, plush and inflatables and collectibles and play sets and figures and I just built a whole line. I mean, it was just like an entire line of fun stuff and Giggle Blaster and the DJ Bob and it was just, I mean, everything was just fun, you know. And then again, it's that was a license thing, so I had a good time with it. So if they give you the ability to have a good time with the license, have a good time with it, enjoy it, have the good experience with it, and walk away satisfied knowing that you gave that license your absolute best. But if you're also given the opportunity to do your own thing in IP, like give it your all. I mean, spend the time with it, create something really special because you want to inspire the next generation. That's the goal, right? I mean, as a new IP, you want to inspire the next generation. You don't want to just be like, oh, I'm just doing it for a job, or I just want to get paid. I'm just, I this is what I do for a living. You know, it's like no, it's like what is your purpose for doing this? You know, and for me, it was like, for me, it's about like what do you leave behind? You know what I mean? I want kids later down 30, 40 years from now saying, you know what? I remember battle machines, and that was the coolest thing, and it inspired me to be a toy designer. And I'm like, wow, I created bat. I mean, it was just something that I created. You know, I broke my son's toy, and I created this toy, and it just, like I said, it becomes very much like a motive for inspiration for the future. You know what I mean? And I think that's the key thing is like a lot of us designers, we have to just keep that in mind to keep our industry growing. Whether you're doing animatronics or Halloween, or you're doing car designs or whatever, someone's following behind you like 20 years later. That kid that was buying your toy at the toy store could be the very kid that's in school, you know what I mean, trying to become that, you know what I mean. And I think that's the beauty of what we do, because later on it just we just leave that behind, you know. That's what we leave behind. Like, I got these He-Man figures back here, and I remember growing up thinking about these. I had bags of toys that my parents, Thundercats and GI Joes, and all these cool, like GoBots, and I had tons of toys. And I never thought I would be a toy designer. I never thought in my life, in my ever life, but I was so inspired by them so much that, and now I look back and I'm like, Skeletor, oh my God, He-Man, oh my God, Thundercats, and I buy these things, and I'm thinking to myself like, I do this too. Like I am doing this now. You know what I mean? Like now this is just stuff that I collect now, but it's really stuff that I do. I get paid to do this. Like this is what I do for a living. So that's what it's really awesome. Now that I do animatronics, it's kind of cool because I have, and my team does too. My team does too. So we have fans from Spirit that are so out of control fans that love the brand, that are so interested in becoming designers because of what we've inspired them with. And that's again, that goes back to what I said earlier, is like we do it because we love what we do. We design for a purpose. And I think it's like, we all plan to leave a legacy behind. I think subconsciously, I think every designer wants to leave something behind to say, hey, grandpa, I remember when you were doing this stuff back in the day. And like, yeah, I remember when you know, it's just a cool thing to be able to tell that story when you're old and say, yeah, I was a part of that. Or I worked on SpongeBob and I got to work with, so and so. I got to work with this guy. And those are the stories that will forever be, remembered, and it's like, that's what I think I'd love to tell my grandkids one day and say, hey, your grandpa worked on Star Wars, and your grandpa worked on Marvel stuff, and your grandpa worked on, you know what I mean? It's just a cool story, because then you don't want to be the grandpa to be like, well, I didn't do nothing. I just you know what I mean? So yeah, you just want to be purposeful in your creations, man. It's like whether it's licensed or non-licensed, do it with a purpose, enjoy it, learn from it, and whatever it is, whether it's IP or working on brands and stuff. So that's what I would say. Long-winded, yes, that's what I would say.
So if there was a company who was looking to capitalize on a copywritten brand, but they've gotten permission, and then they're going to go work with an artist, what type of things would you suggest for them to keep in mind?
Can you repeat that
So
again?
let's say that I have a company and I'm producing a widget of some sort,
Sure.
and Nickelodeon's giving me SpongeBob, and I'm like, I can have SpongeBob on my widget. And I come to you as the creative, and I'm like, okay, I want a thing. What type of things should I be looking for as some guidelines, some guide rails to make sure that I'm staying within, my vision, but also keeping in mind that I'm working with a national brand?
Um, well, I think first off, I mean, definitely make sure you're working with an artist that are you talking about just for the artist, or like like how you select an artist?
Yes, the that relationship, yes.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess I would definitely push for a relationship with somebody that understands branding, or like that type of stuff, because some people don't understand how to treat a brand.
Mhm.
That's very it's not that it's hard to find, it's just that some people are good at designing product, but they're not good at, like, I don't know how to explain that to you. It's like there's some people that understand how to design, like, toys, product, whatever you want to call it. But when you give them an actual brand to work with, they don't know what to do with it. They really just know whatever the style guide says or whatever you provide them. So if you say to them, "Hey, I need you to create a SpongeBob line for me. Here's what he looks like, and here's his a couple cartoons, and look at them and watch them. And I need you to help me build a brand or help me build things from this character." Some people might not be able to do that because they don't understand how to, you know, they don't understand how to be versatile. Is That's the word, the versatility. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So find an artist that is versatile. That's the key thing. Find a versatile artist that can be able to take that style of that character and brand it, or make it to fit what your vision is. You know what I mean? Whether it's stylizing it, whether it's, creating it through a vector look or a Photoshop look or a realism, whatever it is, the style you're looking for, you got to make sure that this artist is able to be versatile with that line and be able to take, your vision to that level that you're looking for. And like I said, it does. I've worked with my share of amazing artists that are versatile. um, I myself like to be versatile only because of that reason, is because I like to be more, I want to have more opportunities to work on things that are more fun for me. Whether it's your idea or your brand, if it's fun for me, I'm gonna have fun with it. So I have fun with whatever I enjoy working on. So being versatile, I'm like, oh, I can do this, and then for this I'll do this, and for this I'll do this, and then now I'm just building this world for you, and then you're just like sitting back, just watching all these things just come to life and all these ideas. But if somebody's not versatile, you're only going to get pretty much a just a flat, very basic, look of stuff. You know what I mean? And so I would say find somebody that you can trust with versatility and understands branding for sure.
I can totally understand that. And I totally find that all of your stuff is so inspiring as far as Spirit Halloween's my favorite stuff. Ty,
Thank
do you
you.
have anything else to add?
I could definitely talk to Carlos all day about his art process and like Halloween and like seeing your creations, in store when people go in there. Obviously, people are taking photos and selfies with your animatronics that you're creating. And then, I can't help but like look towards the future, sort of like when you're, you know, creating these, they give you freedom to create these killer clown hardlines, right? But next year, there's a big video game that's being produced. So they're collectors that are going to be looking for what you're creating this year. And that's going to be amazing. Those are going to be collector items that are going to sit on people's shelves, just like you have behind you right now. So
Yeah,
what?
I mean, the ones that I have right now for Killer Clowns is like I have these guys here, the popcorn snake,
Oh
and I have
yeah, yeah.
up here. So I mean, there is a lot of fans that pick up this stuff. The game is completely different from my style, for sure.
Mhm.
But I do like the darkness that they brought into the game of that, which is really really cool. I didn't go too dark with it because I did want it to have a broader audience. I did want to make it for, like, I wanted it for kids, but also for adults, for females and males and whatever, whoever wants to buy it, they can all. It's all for everybody. So it wasn't just creepy for one specific horror genre. It was really
Sure.
more about, let's make this a broader thing. So that's why I went with that
Awesome.
animated look.
Well, thank you for talking to us today. And if people wanted to follow you,
Yeah.
where would they follow you at?
Well, I'm trying to stay away from Facebook because it just doesn't. I don't have no business there. But I definitely have an Instagram that everyone can come see my work there. It's at Carlos 3 and then art. And that's where I pretty much post all my latest stuff. I got a book coming soon, so I hope to kind of inspire people off that book, and hopefully I can come back to your show and talk about it because it's
Yeah,
gonna be
for
a really
sure.
fun month. Yeah, I'll let you
Love
know
that.
what's up, and I'll let you know when it comes out. But yeah,
Yes,
thanks.
please do.
Appreciate it.
We'll put all
Carlos
your
Cuellar.
we'll put all your contact info in the comments of all the videos and the
Thanks, man. I
podcast
appreciate
itself.
it.
So no problem. It's about to kick us off here, so I got to say goodbye.
Sure.
Thank you so much again for talking to us, Jessica.
Guys, I really appreciate you guys.
Yeah, for
Thank
sure.
you.
You guys,
Bye.
bye bye. Good to meet you, Jessica.
Yes,
Bye bye. Thanks,
yes, of
Ty.
course. Bye.
Bye bye.